everyone, and welcome to Adoptions from the Heart TV. I'm your host, Amanda Aliberti. I would like to welcome Christian, who's a social worker here at our agency. Today we're going to be talking about what it's like when a birth parent comes back to us a second or a third time and chooses to place with a different family from the first placement. So Christian, can you start with sharing with our audience a little bit of what it's like when you're fielding that call from a woman who has already placed with our agency and the type of counseling that you do in terms of preparing for a second placement?
Yeah, so I think in most cases it's something that we kind of have to uncover a little bit after we meet with the birth parent, whether it's in the hospital or in the office here, and then see if they've had children before and if they've been placed. From that, we'll see if they're placed through our agency, through another agency, or through CYS, Child Youth Services. And through that, we kind of look into avenues of, does this birth parent want to keep their children together in the same home, or do they want them separate? And from there, we kind of go in and ask, why do you want to have them in separate homes, or why would you want to have them together, and figure out their reasoning to what their decision is.
Sure. And you hit on a good point that people should recognize. We don't always know. The birth parents are not always forthcoming for a variety of reasons of whether or not they have other children who are placed in care. But as you mentioned, unraveling that and them feeling protected and safe to share that information is important for us to figure out what should happen for this next child. So for situations where the birth parent opts to not want to place the children together, which we see that, more often than not, of choosing a different situation. What has been your experience of why they don't want to keep the children together?
I would say for the most part, I think birth parents will see it as their, it's a burden almost, as in, this family's already done so much for me thus far and for my family, their child. How can I go back and ask them to parent another one of my children? And more so what will they think of me now that I'm in a situation where I might not be financially stable enough yet to raise a child. They might be going through drug or alcohol addiction that they might not have gotten under control yet. And now they are kind of coming back with this problem that they have and have some shame and guilt towards that.
Sure. Yeah, the shame and guilt, I think, is a common reason I have seen, is that they don't want the first family to know about the fact that they're facing another unplanned pregnancy. And even though we try to counsel them on the lack of, there's no judgment and we're not here, to criticize or whatnot, some birth parents just want it to be confidential, and we're trying to be as protective of that as possible. So when you are looking to place a second or a third child with a different family, talk to our audience about what we do as an agency to try to still keep the siblings connected, or at least, knowing each other.
When we go in, we try to figure out what other agency they might have been placed through or with, and again, if it was CYS or not through the state. From there, we can kind of backtrack and follow the first child's history and see if we can get in contact with the parents there. We'll ask birth parents if they want the children to have contact with their sibling, and that way they can still have that connection moving forward, which I personally think is fairly important for a child to have. And that's something that goes into my own story as well, with getting to know my brother. When I was adopted, he was still with my birth mom, but having that reunion with him was also something that was very important for me, and just knowing that he was out there and on the other side of the coin, where he found out that he has a brother, he wanted to meet me as well. So it was, I think that plays a lot into the role of the digging that I do personally as a social worker, in order to make sure that everyone has an understanding of the importance of connection within siblings.
Yeah. Well, and we oftentimes talk about the rights of the adopted parents, the rights of the birth parents, but there's also some level of the rights of the adoptee, right? And I think here at Adoptions from the Heart, we try very hard to allow for sibling connection. And as long as the birth parent approves it, our goal is to try to have the 2 or the 3 adoptive families who have siblings be connected. And maybe the birth parent is not ready or willing or wanting to have visits or a connection, but those families can have those visits and the connections. And we see that happen all the time, especially at our Adoptions from the Heart picnic. We see families that meet regularly, for 10 years, where they come together and they're able to connect with other families, and the kids can grow up knowing each other. I would imagine for you as an adoptee that impacts you and seeing that connection.
Yeah, I think it does a lot. I think it's someone that I could connect a little bit more with than my birth mom on other ways.
Sure.
I think having a sibling in general, growing up as an only child here, having that sibling that I've always like wanted finally here, I think that's a cool connection to have, especially as I've gotten older, with somebody else to like confide in that might have had similar experiences. In my case, we were different experiences because he wasn't adopted.
Sure.
But still, I got to learn my family through him and learn more about who my birth mom was through like a third-party experience of someone that knows her extremely well.
Sure, absolutely. Well, thank you. We appreciate you sharing a little bit about your personal experience, how it influences you as a social worker here at Adoptions from the Heart. And we're hopeful that our community can better understand how we handle situations of birth parents coming back for a second or third time for placement. So thank you so much, guys, and continue to tune in to future episodes.